There are certain people you meet in life and instantly feel like you've known them forever. That's exactly what happened when I crossed paths with today's guest at the High Vibe Festival, which, side note, if you haven't been yet, do yourself a favor and get there next year. Now, from the jump, we were having deep, soul-expanding convos one minute and dancing our faces off to some of our favorite artists in the next. But beyond the vibes, what struck me most was this guest's grounded philosophy on life, his powerful perspective on personal evolution, and the way he navigates entrepreneurship as a form of spiritual growth. And in this episode, we explore what it means to truly live aligned, to walk your own path, honor your intuition, and create success without sacrificing your soul. So if you're someone who's beating to your own drum and committed to being the fullest version of yourself, this one's for you. So please give me a big hand and welcome into the show, my man, Tyler Drake. Tyler Drake, my man. Dude, am I excited to be here with you today. For the listeners tuning in, as I said in the intro, Tyler and I got to meet each other recently at the High Vibe Festival out in Weldon, California, and boy, was it a high vibe time. It was absolutely epic. We had so much fun out there, and Rach and I both came back saying Tyler was one of our favorite people we met out there. Rach got to have amazing conversations with you. I got to have amazing conversations with you. Your presence is amazing, dude. Your energy is infectious. And so I'm super excited to have you on the show to really go on a riff sesh. You know, the listeners tuning in, you guys know I like to plan as less as possible when it comes to these shows, because what I found over my years in podcasting, I know you're a podcaster too, Tyler, so I imagine you felt this too, is when you plan too much, you kind of don't allow the magic to come in that's meant to come in. But if you don't plan enough and you have no idea, well, then there's no structure. So I like to have the littlest bit of structure just to guide us into the mystery of life itself. And so, man, I'm super excited to have you here with me today. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing amazing, brother. And you know the term, if you spot it, you got it. So thank you so much for all of your compliments. The way that I hold my energy is a reflection of the way that you hold your energy. And it was immediate with both you and Rachel. I was just like, wow, this is soul fam right here. I can see us weaving for years, you know, co-creating and just expanding, you know, like doing the quote unquote work on the inside, going into the depths in order to just be able to live more fun with more play every day, baby.
Yes, dude, let's go. He's a poet and he does know it, ladies and gents. Okay. So, and Tyler, I'd love if you could share a little bit about your background, man, because you have such an interesting journey and you do so many amazing things. And, you know, as I've told you before, the big topic of this show, and again, we get into a lot of stuff, but the foundational element of this show is the hero's journey. It's about what someone does to be the highly optimized version of themselves, the version of themselves that is courageous enough to ask the right questions in life that allow their unique magic to come out. The person that's courageous enough to take risks even when they don't feel like they're quote unquote ready, to allow that unique magic to really give something to the world that will change the world forever, man. And so I'm super excited to hear more about your journey, even for myself as well. And so tell me a little bit about how you got to this screen with me here today, bro.
By being a high vibe guy.
Yes, dude. Let's go, dude. That's why you're at High Vibe Festival. All right. It fits the bill perfectly.
For sure. For sure. Well, yeah, I mean, I've basically always been cut from a different cloth since I was a kid. And so the regular traditional school system didn't work for me. I'm not a cog that fits into the machine. And so I've always been very entrepreneurial ever since like 13, 14 years old, you know, like just buying and selling stuff, whatever it is that I could, got really successful at that. And I chose not to even complete high school. I was 4 credits away. And I'm like, this is stupid. I don't have anything to prove to anybody here. And so I got immediately into business. And I started a company where I was working for a gentleman who had these kiosks in the mall, and they were selling hermit crabs in painted shells as pets. And so that was something that I had got to do and really enjoyed. And I had friends making fun of me and stuff. And I'm like, bro, this is amazing. I got nobody that's watching over me. I'm having fun. I get to meet all these different people. I get to be creative and actually like bring spark of life into somebody's field. And in particular, it was kids at the time. And man, it was just a wild way to start. And so I ended up buying one of those businesses from him after running them for a few years in different locations, like down in Las Vegas and all that. And so that was back in 2006. That was the formation of my company. And then for 18 years, I had a retail entrepreneurship journey that included everything from body jewelry, like, piercing jewelry and a piercing studio, to a mineral makeup line where I brought in people from other countries, from Brazil and from Russia, to support in this, like, it was really economically focused at the time, because going and growing up in the regular school system, the thing that I noticed is, what is the code of the matrix? And at the time, it was money. So if I figured out how to be successful with money at a young age, then I don't need to, quote unquote, waste my time with things I'm not going to do or utilize moving forward. So I bet, similar to you, when I have interest in something, I have obsessive interest.
Yeah,
but when I don't, like, I cannot tune in. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's all or nothing. I totally feel that.
Exactly. And so I've had 3 huge financial resets, including when I was 23 years old, right after I started this company at 20, and learned the value of actually having leadership and management. Like, what do these things actually mean as humans? How do we relate with each other? How do we stay on the same wavelength, on the same team, and actually win and be successful? And so I closed that retail chapter about a year and a half ago, because I was not fulfilled. It was strictly born of the mind. And so what am I going to do if it's all service to self? And that's what the model was built on. The one reward system is, do we have more digits? Do we have more numbers in an account, or less? And if we have less, that equals bad. If we have more, that equals good. Well, guess what, bro? We have a heart and a mind. And shout out to Joe Dispenza and everybody else, the Heart Math Institute. When the heart and the mind are in coherence, when they're operating together, we have this super fluid, expansive bandwidth. And so what I'm working on now is new models of economics, new models like New Earth architecture, to actually support heart vision entrepreneurs, so that instead of being focused on the numbers, we're focused on the soul and on the heart and our mission, and it gets supported by the numbers.
Dude, that is so sick, man. And it's perfect for what's coming in now. I mean, if you look at the market and you look at kind of everything going on, it's clear that authenticity right now is starting to become a new, very deeply purposeful and deeply respected core value, and people are really wanting the authentic truth. I mean, I won't mention any names, but I've been seeing quite a few people that, to be honest, my discerning radar always kind of went, not my flavor of ice cream, right? Some of these people were pushing vegan diet, let's just say, and other things or whatever. And I'm like, hey, do what you want to do. But, they were saying it in a certain way where it was almost like, this way is the only way. And one of my favorite quotes is, there's endless rivers that reach the same sea. The only one that's wrong is the one that tells you there's only one way to get there. And so whenever I see someone saying, this is the only way, my spidey senses immediately go off. And just today, I was witnessing one of these people implode, and, there's many people talking about this person. And then again, I don't care. I'm not judging this person. I don't know if what people are saying is accurate, but it makes a lot of sense based on what I've felt if these things people are saying are true. I don't know. I'm not going to, go into the peanut gallery and start repeating and parroting stuff. But again, like, it seems like a lot of the old way, right? Like the influencers, let's say, that rent a Lamborghini and they rent a Rolex and they're like, I can make you money. Like, everyone kind of looks at those now and is like, this is a shyster, Whereas only 3 years ago, a lot of like that stuff worked. If you had a Lamborghini around you, people would buy stuff from you. And that always kind of frustrated me, because that's not really what matters, right? Like, what really matters is, I mean, on a 3D level, what really matters is, can this person get me the result that I'm looking for? But on a 4 and 5D level, it's like, is this person the energy I want to be connecting with? So I think it's great that you're doing that, because one of my other favorite ideas I've ever gotten is the idea that the heart must come before the mind. And what I mean by that is that if you aren't tuning into what you're passionate about, and you're just going after like a numbers game, like many people have in the past or things like that. My dad did this, right? My dad had a company that he bought from my grandfather just because it made a lot of money. And again, I'm not judging my dad for that. His parents came from the Great Depression. He had different things that he focused on. But at the same time, like, now I feel like we've transcended that time. We don't have to just do that. So if we can tune into what our heart wants, and then allow the mind to be our gifted servant and allowing to get the structure of how the heart can get what it wants, then things are what I would say is in alignment in the new world. Would you say that's similar to how you think?
1000%, bro.
Yeah, dude.
We can't even hold it within 100%. Right?
Yeah,
it's not
dude.
a fixed pie like something of the mind. It's 1,000. It's tenfold, exponential. This is the way of the heart is infinite. The more that I give you love, the more that I show love, the more I actually feel love, the more that you get the opportunity to feel love if you choose to receive, and vice versa. And so the more that we can actually do this, I mean, think about this. I saw this Brent Pellis kit the other day, with Blake Weber, and he was like, oh yeah, these humans, they devised this system where people starve and created an artificial system so that some people don't have food, even though there's just such an abundance of food.
It's insane.
What?
I know.
Like, how long is it going to take for our collective consciousness to become aware that this is absolute insanity and that within you is me? And when it's you and me, we're in unity, then we actually win this game to infinity.
Dude, fucking poet, and he does know it once again, bro. But dude, like it's so obvious that I honestly get frustrated when other people don't notice it. But I have compassion, but like, it's so obvious, right? Like, if we look in any sacred text, they're all talking about the same thing. Most people are too confused around like random sentences that men put into these texts, and they're arguing about that instead of seeing the full image here, right? Like, perfect example. Right. Think about one of the biggest religions out there, Christianity, okay? How many people have died because they thought they were fighting for God, which is like the biggest oxymoron ever, okay? And it's like, when are we going to stop being essentially cavemen, spirituality-wise, and start realizing we've always had so many more similarities than differences? And that our differences, the only reason we should talk about them is from curiosity. Like, whoa, what does it feel like to be you? Or what does it feel like to be this gender? Like, what does it feel like to be female? Like, that stuff's fun to talk about, right? But what do humans do? What have we allowed ourselves to fall into from the powers that shouldn't be and marketing and all these things? We've allowed ourselves to project our unconscious guilt onto the person we think is out there, even though no one out there really exists, because we're all one being experiencing itself. And I think that one of the biggest shifts that we're making in humanity right now is the ability to take full ownership over that. That if I get mad on something you say, it's no longer your fault. It's my responsibility to deal with. I don't put that on you anymore because I'm now an adult. I'm not an infant anymore in the eyes of Creator. And so I think that's where we're heading towards. But I will be honest, I think right now is a really interesting squeeze because the world is more aware than ever. It's not worse than ever, right? It's more aware than ever. We're starting to feel how much it sucks that people starve. We're starting to feel how much like it sucks that we're in war with other countries that we don't even know what they're about. Like, we're starting to feel this stuff to a level that is almost incomprehensible at this point. And I think that's why right now it feels for a lot of us that have done the work to become energetically aligned, it feels very challenging to be in the world right now. Because again, when we're at High Vibe, dude, every single person there gets this kind of stuff. It would be foundational first principle knowledge for them. But then literally you go to the airport right after that and it's a very different world. And that's what life feels like. It feels like I'm in one world, but I have to exist in some part of another world at times. And it's just a strange thing, very strange.
100%. Yeah. It's something I've been feeling into a lot recently, delicately, right? When do I find myself short-tempered, for example, or unwilling to acknowledge somebody's perspective because their paradigm is different? I mean, mine is rapidly evolved. I went from traditional entrepreneur loving location, freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of relationship, and freedom of purpose, right? Shout out to Dan Sullivan for those. Those have been North Stars and guiding lights for my life and reality. And it still feels 3D, right? The freedom of purpose is to pursue the soul expression. What is it that my soul incarnated here to be, do, have, experience, co-create, weave with, however we want to define it? And so when I'm at the airport, the chairport, and everyone just sitting around, I'm like, if I have the energy, this is key, actually. Energy to me equals inner chi. So when my inner chi is full, I can give to the highest level. And so if I see somebody, I'm going to smile. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to crack a joke. And I actually met a gentleman on the plane last time. I was just in Wyoming for an amazing experience with some of my soul fam. And you know a bunch of the people there actually.
Sick.
And it was awesome. And on the way in, this guy, he pulled down the luggage and shouted out the gentleman's name. And he's like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm just putting it right here." And he didn't know him, but the guy sat next to me on the plane, and we ended up just 2.5 hours, just straight, just laughing and joking, and like super high level dude. He's building systems at a very large scale. And it was so fulfilling because I had the willingness to be curious about this person. And he showed up with this playful propensity, which I relate to highly.
Yes.
Right. And so it was this door opening. Do I put on my headphones, zone into what it is that's familiar, whatever it is that feels like, oh, I can watch a movie, for example? Or do I tap in with this human, this person that's infinitely complex, the Sonder, right? Like you, Ryan, you have an infinitely complex life. And so the reality is that you can never fully share who you are, except the paradox is that you're always sharing fully who you are.
Yeah, dude, I love that. And it reminds me of a quote I once heard. I heard this guy, I think it was a comedy skit or something, and he was saying, no human ever has an excuse to be bored. He said, because if you've forgotten, you're weird as hell. And if everyone's weird as hell, then if you're bored ever, it means either you're not allowing yourself to be as weird as you really are, or someone else around you is not allowing themselves to be as weird as they truly are. Because if we really allowed ourselves to be as weird as we really are, we would be captivated every second of every day. And, you know, again, think about it, right? Like the second you take mushrooms with someone, all of a sudden there's no being bored, right? What is that, right? Is it just mushrooms equal not boredom? No, it's that you're allowing more of your silliness and your authenticity to spill out that maybe you've, you know, grown up out of, or it's not responsible to be silly in our normal reality, or whatever the story may be. But as soon as that lessens, oh my God, all we want to do is connect. Like, show me someone on MDMA who wants to watch a movie versus talk to someone, you know? It's like, so if it's possible there, it's possible all the time, because all these medicines do is just open up a possibility for us. And they allow us to experience a different perspective and a different life for a little while in time. And I think that's, for me, one of the things I'm so grateful for psychedelics doing for me is showing me like who I am, very similar to what you said, is paradoxical. It's like I am everything, but also I am playing a game in which I'm something, but really I'm not something, because something can't come from all things. All things are simply all things, you know? And so I get to play the game of some person, something, etc. But that game can change second to second. And it does. And I think that the more we can tap into that, and the more that we can share those experiences with one another, the more joy we get in life, and also the more inner chi we get. Because again, right, like, you know, if I'm talking to you and we're matching each other's energy, then every time I say something and I'm expending energy, you're saying something back and I'm getting it back, you know? And I think that's one of the challenges also with only communicating through like internet and things like that, you know, through text or whatever, is you're not really getting that back. So you're spending a lot of energy, but you're not getting a lot back, because you can't hear you can't feel the energy of someone else through just a text, maybe a voice note, but not a text.
For sure. And that's a great example, because it's actually more efficient for me, at least, to just hit a voice memo. And so you and I are great at that, dude. We just hit the ball back and forth like we're playing pickleball, and just like even a 10-second voice memo where you feel the vibrancy, the elation within somebody's spirit. Like you're like, I'm so pumped to hop on and do this podcast today. Boom, see you in a sec, bro. Like, how long did that take you? It was a simple choice that took, 7 seconds, and just lit me up even more than I was already lit up. We breathe life into each other's souls.
Yes. And in doing so, paradoxically, we're breathing soul into just the one soul, right? We're breathing life into the oversoul, if you will, or the collective unconscious. Because again, if we think about us all being one, first of all, that idea alone should be enough to keep us interested and curious for our entire life. Like, wait a minute. So you're saying that I'm playing this main character game where I believe I'm this guy, Ryan Sprague, and you believe this guy, Tyler Drake, but really we're all one? Like, tell me more. Let's go experience that. Let's mess around with it. And I think that that's like the idea of being of the world, but not in it. I think that's the way they say that quote. Because again, at the end of the day, we can know that we're a biological system that comes from components of this illusion called Earth or whatever. But at the end of the day, if we stay too in the world, then we don't ever get to pop our head out and actually like sniff the roses, And again, that's another thing that psychedelics, not to bring them up every 3 seconds, but that's another thing that they really taught me. I remember there was a time where I puddled myself with LSD. And as you do, when you do that, you can't really function as a normal human being. So I laid on my back and I watched the stars all night. And I remember being like, okay, I know we have to have jobs, make money, that whole Matrix game. But why aren't we all rushing out to sit under the stars on Friday night? Like, why isn't that like the thing we're rushing out to be? And that's never left me. That feeling has never left me, of that like visceral feeling like, whoa, we're on a rock hurtling through space, allegedly. All right. Like, who knows? Might be a flat earth. You never know. All right. But I don't know, but at the end of the day, it's all a mystery, right? And mysteries, I think, why do so many of us love Indiana Jones and things like that? Because we love the mystery. And yet we're living in the biggest mystery, the greatest mystery ever. And I'll make it personal for me. I forget that often. I forget it, but luckily I have people like you in my life. And this is what High Vibe Soul Fam does for each other. We allow each other to remember less or remember more and forget less. And if we can do that over time, we're going to win. And that's the goal.
That is the goal. I love how you frame that because, as I go through my journey, sometimes I judge myself for not remembering something. We were talking about a movie and I couldn't recall the title of the movie. And I'm sitting here like, come on, Ty, like, why couldn't you recall that? And yet the irony is that we have the physical mind here, which is really limited, like our physical computer. And then we have the divine mind, the higher mind, right? And that's like cloud compute and these large language models. Like the Akash to me is really simply just the experiential information, the understanding, the data, the blockchain of the universe, aka the U-inverse. Shout out to Robert Edward Grant on that one. Dude. And so the more that I actually chill out and find stillness and balance within myself, I actually get access to everything beyond the physical mind. And this phenomena is particularly apparent in freestyling, right? Slam poetry, freestyling, coming up. Every conversation, this that we're having right now is freestyle. There is nothing beyond the now moment. And yet we're infinitely expanding the now. And as our energy increases, our reach increases, and we can access and hold more information. We can share more energy. And it's just a beautiful journey, bro. Like this is the juice of life to me. This is the nectar of this reality and this incarnation. And that's why we have contrasts. We have the polarity and we have those depths that fucking hurt, Definitely. That's the reason. So we can actually find something within ourselves, within our souls. Man, I feel like I'm projecting this, but this is just like what's flowing through right now.
Keep it going. That MF spitting,
That's the thing, right? And so I had a realization a little bit ago. I'm not going to get into the story today, maybe at some point in the future, but I had a huge awareness of what is my cross to bear, not just in a now moment, but I mean, we're talking about decades. This could be the biggest cross to bear for my entire incarnation. And it's now clear to me. Would I have known that without the contrast, without the pain, without the disruption, the dysregulation? No, of course not. That's why you mentioned the hero's journey. We've got to go through the shit in order to actually convert the shit into the nutrition. Like that's what composting is. It's turning things that we couldn't actually eat and assimilate, bring into our cellular vitality, right? And we're repurposing that. And there's other microorganisms, there's other life forms that are coming in to disintegrate and actually fill up the soil. The soil is the darkness, the void. So what does it take for a seed to actually sprout? Nutrients and darkness, not the sun. Nutrients and darkness. And then once the seed actually sprouts, well, then the sun becomes a guiding light and then the water really supports. So I don't really know where I'm going with that, but
Dude,
just the soul share, bro. Like
it
this is
it made perfect sense to me because you know what it sounds like to me? And this is something I've really been on recently is understanding everything in life in terms of like, all right, we're going to go deep here into what I choose to believe anyway, and we'll see if it resonates, right? But I really believe that if we're all God experiencing itself and we're in this, looks like a world, and it looks like, we've heard before, God created the world in 7 days and all this stuff. I don't think any of that's true. I don't think God created this universe. And I'll tell you why. I think that if you can imagine the all, right? And God hanging out, and maybe a little aspect of God just says, I wonder what it'd be like to go play over there. And it seemed like an innocent enough thought when it happened. But in that moment, there was an illusion of separation. Okay. And in that illusion, three splits occurred. The first one was consciousness, the idea of consciousness, because that in order to be conscious of something, you have to have a subject object duality, right? So it implies separation. Yeah. So that was the first split. The second split was the idea of the ego coming in, the idea of like, do you want a personal identity? It might be rad. You should try it out. That was the second split. The third split was when we chose the ego, right? And so once we chose the ego, we pretty much became the prodigal son. Do you know the story of the prodigal son?
Go ahead and share it.
Yeah. So basically it's this, I want to call it a religious folktale, if you will, but it's basically the story of two brothers. And they're living at home with their dad. I think their dad's like a sheep farmer or something like that. And they're, well off enough. They're not like loaded. They're not emperors or kings, but they have everything they need. It's safe. They got plenty. They got family there and everything's great. Hunky dory. But one brother decides, I feel like I'm missing out. I feel like there's something else out there for me. So he decides to leave home. And he leaves home. He has his little fortune with him that his dad left him, some money, whatever. And he goes out into the world, destined to make his own path or do whatever he's going to do. And basically, this whole story is about this brother going out there and basically, not getting it right. If you want to put it in a right and wrong / duality, he tries to do business, he fails. And at some point, he's going to starve to death. So he's like, I got to go back home to my dad. But you know what, Tyler? He's super scared and guilty that his dad hates him. Because he's like, dude, who the fuck was I, right? Like I had everything I ever needed and I chose to leave home for what, right? Like for a bunch of random experiences. Like I miss my family. I miss everything. And I might have screwed it up royally, right? So he goes walking home with his tail between his legs and he's saying things to himself like, God, please allow my dad to even just make me a slave. I don't deserve anything else, but I'll be a slave for my father and all this stuff, right? And so he goes walking home and as he gets in kind of like a sight distance from his house, he sees his dad way off in the distance. And he's like, oh God, here it comes. And he sees his dad throw his arms up and be like, son, you're back. And then he yells out to one of the servants. He's like, please kill our finest pig. We're going to have a pig roast tonight. And the son kind of walks up and is like, well, you're not mad at me? And the dad's like, of course I'm not, dude. I know why you had to go out there and do your thing. I had to do that once too, but I'm glad you're back. And so I really think that's what we're all playing out here. Like you said, what is the prodigal son doing? He's essentially going into darkness to find the light he always had within him. He's realizing it after he did this adventure, that the adventure wasn't wrong just because it didn't go the way he wanted it to. The adventure was perfect because it led him back home to where he was meant to be. And I think that's really what we're going through here, right? Like, the idea of duality, if it's what we are not, then of course, by exploring that, we'll find our way back home. That's the goal anyway, right? And I think it's one of the most interesting games ever. What would God do, right? The all encompassing. What would it do? The only game left to play is what if I wasn't all this? And so that's, I think, the game we're playing. And the goal is to get back home. And I think people like a Jesus and a Buddha, if their movements weren't corrupted by man, I think their whole idea was, hey, have the best dream you possibly can. It's not like nihilism here. But at the same time, realize this dream, it's not really real. So you don't have to focus. So don't get in the world too much, because if you get in the world, that's the realm of the ego. You can be of the world, but not in it. And I like that idea a lot. That's really been resonating with me. I'm curious if you resonate with it.
100%, bro.
Yeah.
100%. You're so elegant at articulating and sharing the story and perspective.
Thanks, bro. If you spot it, you got it. Once again, you're doing that too.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah.
Recently, we were in Peru leading some retreats, soul mission activation. It's what we call them. And there's a reason for that. And I had an awareness come through when I was feeling a connection with hundreds of spirits. It was profound. First time in my life that I felt like my grandmother's presence, right? And they were ancient beings leaning in, just watching, like full presence on me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, they're living through us. If I'm in quote unquote 5D, there is no time and space. So there's no surprise. There's no emotion. If there's no surprise, there's no polarity to bounce from. And so literally they're looking and feeling through us. And that's why we have such an incredible synergistic relationship with our guides, right? With our ancestors, the spirits, because the spirit is obviously infinite. To me, it's obviously infinite. Infinite. And yet, you know, this life is so finite. And so guess what? There's a limited amount of babies that are being born every year. So I can only imagine how many souls are just itching to get in here to this incredible playground of planet Earth and live a 3D life, get to laugh and cry and taste like food. What? This is something that doesn't exist in spirit lands, right? In non-physical reality. And so I find it really special that we actually get to have this incarnation and we get to go through this journey. And so now as I experience these pain points and such, the God bumps are flowing. As I experience these depths, I'm leaning in more and more with gratitude in the now. As I'm experiencing the pain, I'm grateful for it. Like, wow, I get to share this. What is the lesson that I get to learn? How can I teach my daughter from what I've learned? How is it that I can teach anyone? And the first student is always thyself, right? How am I actually going to learn from this? And guess what? It happens automatically when my ego gets out the way and the heart operates.
100%, dude. You know, and this is the kind of paradox of simplicity versus easiness. You know, like what you just said, very simple. But it's actually funny that in the world of the ego, simplicity, which is the language of God, is complex because the ego loves to think of things in complexity. And paradoxically, complexity actually feels more simple. Point in place, right? You know, when I first started making courses, programs, whatever, it was really just like an idea I had. And, you know, I had this, you know, idea after a while, like maybe I'm meant to build a cannabis program. And so I just had fun and I built it. That was simple. It was very simple to do it. And then afterwards, I started, you know, now that I was going to make a business and I was going to do all this stuff, I started looking up, you know, marketing and sales. And I convinced myself that I knew nothing about business and that I needed to learn all about these marketing systems and these sales tactics and everything. Even though somehow, some way, I had built this program, I had never sold anything in my life. And here I was selling spots at $5K a pop. And then I convinced myself I didn't know anything. I got way into the world of complexity and I got lost for a little while because I would meet people who were used to the other side of not allowing heart to come before mind. And they're all like, well, did you do market demographics and did you do market research? And, you know, you got to do this funnel design and, you know, use these, you know, keywords and hashtags and whatever. And I'm like, okay, like, I don't doubt that all of that is, I don't know, maybe important, but I didn't do fucking any of that in the beginning. All I did was gift cannabis to Paul Check. And he really invited me to make a cannabis program. And then I did it because it was fun for me. That's all I really did. I just followed fun. And so it's interesting how that whole simplicity versus complexity thing is very weird. And that's what allowed me to kind of see, like, I really think that the way that I discern, you know, the Holy Spirit or higher self thoughts from the ego thoughts are the thoughts simple? If they're simple, right? Like today I'm feeling very simple. Like I woke up, hey, everything's working out. If it's not there yet, it's okay. Time's an illusion anyway, like that kind of mindset. But there are times that I wake up maybe a little more anxiety in my body. And I'm like, I must have to figure out a new way to sell courses or whatever it is. And that's complexity. I can feel the difference. It feels like fear and scarcity and everything like that. Versus this feels like allowance. It feels like abundance. It feels like inspiration. It feels like relaxation. You know, it feels like I'm completely in my power. And so it's very interesting. I'm glad you brought that up.
It's literally what I wrote down. Spirit equals simple.
Yes.
That is a
Yes.
golden ticket right here, ladies and gentlemen, and any kind of being that's listening.
Yeah.
If it is simple, then it's likely of spirit,
Yeah.
of God, of source. Because source is so simple. It sees all, experiences all. That's why operating through the lens of the heart is so important, because the heart is the portal that connects me to we.
Mm. Yes.
And so I move out of the way because the intelligence system, I don't call it the nervous system anymore. I call it the intelligence system. Our body's intelligence system is getting these subtle information signals constantly, right? How attuned am I into it? This morning, for example, I actually meditated this morning, and I've had years that I've gone with like an hour, 2 hours of meditation a day. Yeah, just getting it and felt like so tapped in. But recently, I've not been like at all. And I'm like, how is this possible, Ty? And so I slowed down. And part of it is that I knew I was going to come on and record with you. And I wanted to actually have my best presence be available for you and for everyone that's listening. So guess what? Slowing down into the simplicity, into the stillness, and it actually allows us to connect.
You know, it's funny. I had an analogy came to me as a idea that I think perfectly describes what you're talking about right here. And it was the whole idea of the snow globe, right? Like when we're younger,
Yes.
not just physically, but definitely physically as well. But when we're younger mentally in a way, it feels either more exciting or more right or more incongruence, I guess you could say, to shake the snow globe up, cause and effect. Let's just see what this, oh, wow, it's going so fast. Oh my God, right? But it takes a while to realize that until you actually stop shaking the snow globe, you've never been able to see the image that only comes clear when all the dust settles in there, right? And so it's funny how life works like that, where, you know, I used to think that meditating and slowing down, boring. What do I want to do that? But what I didn't realize was, no, it's actually very alive. Like actually slowing down is becoming more aware of so much more. And so once again, I mean, life is really just a series of paradoxes, I think. But that is definitely a paradox, because what I thought was going to happen was that I'd be bored and I'd be stationary. I'm actually the complete opposite of that. I've never been more fulfilled and I've never been more adventurous than when I slow down, especially like, let's say in a meditative state, right? Because then I'm astral traveling, I'm astral projecting, I'm maybe experiencing past lives or different multidimensional awareness points. I mean, there's so much that's going on. But if you can't tune into the subtle layers of that, you miss a lot. Because again, as within, so without, like we've been talking about. So if you're not aware of the stuff happening seemingly out there, well, that's only a reflection of what you're seemingly not aware of inside. And so when you think about how to be a highly optimized human being or whatever, I've thought about this a lot. Like, what do I mean by that? And again, it's a multifaceted answer, but in this context, it's definitely having your intelligence system in a balance point, not being off all the time, but definitely not being on all the time. Having a perfect balance point where you can be essentially in the world, but not of it, right? Same kind of idea. Like, you know, for instance, when people freak out about some war in a different country they're never going to go to, right? It's like, can you be informed around that and go, oh, that's interesting, that's happening, but not be smothered around it and not let your emotions take, you know, off on you. If, you know, your partner says, hey, can you clean up the dishes, and maybe you didn't get enough sleep and you get that frustrated feeling, can you have that moment in between where you just react based on that feeling? And as a result, end up responding instead and saying, hey, right now, I'm just, you know, I'm at max. Give me 10 minutes. I'm going to do some breath work, whatever. But again, like think about it this way, because again, how we do anything is how we do everything. Everyone understands why you get a car and oil change. Everyone understands why you check your tire pressure. Everyone understands the tire pressure can change between winter and summer. Everyone understands that eventually your transmission fluid is going to need to get replaced. Eventually, you may need to replace the car in general. So really, our lives are like a car. If we don't go replacing our oil, if we leave our engine on 24/7, what happens to a car? Does it get healthier or does it break down? It breaks down, right? And so at the end of the day, we want to be able to keep our car going as far and fast as possible. And the better care we take of it each day by being in tune with that car, by not driving all the time with the radio up to 11, but actually hearing what does the motor sound like when it's operating efficiently, So that way I can hear like, hey, that's not a normal sound, or hey, that's not a normal smell. I better bring it to the shop and figure out what's going on. I think that's such a good analogy for what we're talking about here, because I mean, I just love car analogies. The listeners know I have all these random analogies that come to me, dude. It's how God speaks to me. And half of them are all about race cars. And I'm like, God, what are you doing here? People are going to think I'm obsessed with cars or something. But it's true. It really works for it.
Yeah. And I love the parallel that karma.
Yeah.
Car,
yeah.
vehicle. This is our vehicle of interacting. And by definition, I'm going to influence everyone and everything with every single movement, every micro movement, every micro decision. When I'm walking, did I step on an ant? Oftentimes I don't know. But yet that ant is having a full and complete life experience that I might have just terminated. Did I do it out of some sort of ill will? No. But this is the game of consciousness. The more that I can actually be present and attuned to how I'm rippling at any given moment, this is, man, it's a key.
Dude, I was laughing inside right there because it's like, did I know I stepped in the ant? No, but the ant definitely knew.
The ant knew. The ant knew for sure. And then now it doesn't know anymore.
Yeah. Now it's back to a puddle of goo on the ground and also completely free in spirit, It's very interesting, bro. And it's so true because, again, like that's one of the interesting shifts that's happened for me in the last 10 years, I would say is, the pain I feel in me with the idea of killing any animal. And not just like a cat or something I would never have killed to begin with, but like a fly. I'm like, man, I kind of feel bad for the fly. It was flying around. It went in the door and now it's stuck in this room and I just want to kill it. Like, that's crazy, right? Like, I wouldn't want that to happen to me, And so at the end of the day, like, it's really the golden rule. And that's like something I do because, and I think as you start to get more and more evolved spiritually or in tune or whatever you want to call it, it just becomes harder and harder to do anything that brings death to the world in any way. Not because death is inherently bad, but because like it's just you see yourself in everything, and it's really hard not to. And that's why it's very challenging for me because, and this is something I'm sure you can agree with, you guys tuning in. I'm sure a lot of you feel this way, if not all of you guys, if you're listening to this show, for God's sakes, where it's like, we probably have friends, family members that really think that whoever's president or whatever war we're in is like the most panic thing ever, like they have to react. They have to freak out about it. And deep down, I just know to my bones, it doesn't really matter. I'm either going to live or I'm going to die. And regardless, I never really die. The only objective here, as I see it, is to wake up. When you think about like, not the version of Jesus that the Bible talks about, but what I believe is the real version, Jesus came here with one final forgiveness lesson. And that forgiveness lesson was the crucifixion. So he knew that was going to happen, right? And he could have stopped it. He could have prevented it. But why didn't he? Because he realized none of this was real anyway. And if his sacrifice, if you will, which he didn't think of it that way, but if his forgiveness lesson could help some other people wake up, he's like, hey, we're not trying to be here forever anyway. We're trying to wake up. We're playing a game here. And the way you win the game is you wake up within the dream. So if I am the most awake person that's ever walked the planet, not me, but Jesus, right? And I'm essentially on the leaderboard. I'm number one on the leaderboard of the most awake people to ever exist. And I know that I can just hop into another body if I want to, whenever. Then why wouldn't I, quote unquote, sacrifice a body that doesn't matter anyway? It does matter in the dream, but it doesn't matter in the context of like reality anyway. Why wouldn't I do that with the guise of helping other people realize, oh my God, this is all a game, right? And that's what makes it beautiful. That we're experiencing, like I said before, something that isn't going to last forever. The opposite of what we really are, because we're infinite beings. And I think the way that we have the most fun dream is we live a finite existence with an infinite outcome. I think that's really the goal, right? Like, because again, like you're saying, even if we wake up in the dream, I'm not going to have this meat suit again, potentially, right? I don't know offhand. I have no idea. But, there are still things that can never be done again. And so as a result of that, I'm still going to live and breathe each breath as if it's my last, knowing that I'm really infinite. And And I think that's really like how you have your cake, you eat it too, and the cake's gluten-free as a cherry on top, you know? It's the best I can get to so far, you know?
I love that, man. One of the epiphanies that came up for Jason and I at one of our last ceremonies was, let's treat every supper as Last Supper.
Yeah, dude.
Because guess what? Sometime it's going to be the Last Supper.
Mm-hmm. And we probably won't know it's about to be the last either.
No, of course not.
I mean, dude, think about, for you guys tuning in, we're recording this on, what's the date today? July 22nd. So a couple days before it goes out. And a couple weeks ago, I was watching Back to the Beginning, Ozzy Osbourne's final farewell show. And literally, as we're starting this podcast, I hop on Facebook. Tyler had a goody gumdrops moment. He spilled his drink on his keyboard. So he was like, hey, hold on a second, right? And so I opened up Facebook and I see my buddy, rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne. I'm like, no fucking way. And so I go look and yeah, sure as shit. He passed on, right? He's back. He's actually expanded. I like trading out that word from dying to expanding. Because really, we are souls in bondage in this body. So really, when we pass on, we expand back to what we really are. That's what I choose to believe anyway. And so I don't know if he knew. Maybe he did have an intuitive sense that he was getting close to the end, but he didn't know that. He didn't know last night or 2 nights ago or maybe a week ago that he would be passing specifically today at this time. And so I love that idea, like Hoka, hey, today's a good day to die. That whole idea, very similar in nature. It's really cool.
Yes. And the more die before I die. So I actually live.
Yes.
If I believe that I'm going to live in this body forever, or that I get my physical capabilities and ability to use these apparati, have the function of feet and hands and a tongue and a nose and eyeballs and ears, like all this stuff, like some people can't speak. Some people can't move their body. Like, this is a gift.
It really is.
Come on, Ty. Remember that.
Yeah.
Remember. We're remembering what was already there. Right? This is so important, bro. Like, especially with the Ozzy Osbourne, analogy right here, because for you, that was a really influential person in your life and in your childhood and how you grew up. And, he said he was going to be playing music, living his soul's purpose, his highest excitement, his highest passion until the day he died. And damn it, it looks like he did.
He did it, dude.
That is a life well lived.
Yeah, 100%, man. You're totally right. And, that's really like, my hope for everyone in the world is that you get to tap into that essence like Ozzy found, or like you found, or like I found, and that continues evolving. Like, it's not usually a static thing, right? It's a yes and. At first, I was just a guy who was going to make YouTube videos about cannabis. That was what I was going to do. Then I became the guy that did that and podcasted. Then I became the guy that did that, podcasted, and coached. Then I became the guy that did all 3 of those and made programs. Then I became the guy that went on other podcasts. And like, it's a yes and, right? And I think that that's like the ultimate thing that we're really here for, right? Like, sure, we have this matrix game of money and all these things that don't really matter, but they do in a way. They do in a way. But the way that we get to win those games doesn't have to be the way that we're told we have to win them. And that's like the ultimate way. Because think about someone like an Ozzy Osbourne, for instance, did what he loved, got paid to do it, made the money, was able to, do what he wanted to in life, but never had to go work a dead-end job at Starbucks or whatever just to get by. And I'm not dissing anyone who does that, right? It's a step in some people's journey. It's totally fine. But I remember for me, when I left the dispensary, I told myself, I am never going back to work for anyone else in a typical setting. Would I collaborate with someone? Would I help someone affiliate and sell their stuff? Yeah, sure, if I'm in alignment with them. But I will never not be my own boss again. I will never not be the person that can tell me when I can go on vacation, tell me when I can take breaks. And I think a lot of us have that deep down inside of us. And one of the main reasons I run this show is to show people, more and more people, that are doing this. So that little voice in their head that says, oh, well, they probably did this that way, or they did this. It's like, no, you have over 100 episodes of people that didn't get born with a silver spoon in their mouth, grew up in different areas of the world, different demographics, different generations, different, caveats in life, whatever. And they've all been able to go do this in some way. And has it been easy? Fuck no, right? You got to overwhelm yourself with the complexity of the ego to break through the simplicity of God. But at the same time, it's fucking worth it, right?
Oh my goodness. I could not imagine. That's why I started off the story with like, hey, I didn't even finish high school. Like I saw through that bullshit real quick. Yeah. And once I started to actually like get my entrepreneurial chops in, it was so fulfilling because my mission is now I'm the last to eat. So I actually have a vested interest in serving everyone on my team, right? So my actual end clients were not the person I'm serving. I'm serving my team. My team is the bridge to the end clients. And sure, I'm also bridging with everyone and everything simultaneously, but that switch of the paradigm was huge because then they're no longer looking at me of what's Ty doing. Right. There was an era of entrepreneurship where I felt like I couldn't even leave my retail business, even when I had all my staff, everybody. We had awesome management. Everything was running smooth. I just felt a codependent cord. Couldn't cut it.
That's a big thing, bro.
Yeah, it's golden handcuffs, right? Because I've only been an entrepreneur. I've not worked for other people, quote unquote. Yet the way that I always framed it with my team once the awareness hit really early on was you're not working for me. We are working together. We're working as a team. We're working towards a purpose and a mission. And then I realized, oh, work to me feels like struggling to do something that I don't want to get an end result that I do. And so I stopped saying work. And now I passionately pour my energy and my vitality into people and projects that I love.
Dude, I love that, man. And I think that if we look at language as what creates the stories that architect and create the reality around us, then it is so important, which is one of the reasons I talk about language and stories all the time. But it's so important to utilize language to create the myths that allow us to have the most fun and have the most excitement and passion about life possible. And I love what you're saying there because it's true, right? Like, even in a business that says it's not that, right? It's this guy or girl at the top and they're taking most of the money and the other people, like, that's still a team. But the difference is the guy or gal at the top is just not doing it in the way that's actually going to make everyone happy. And the funny thing is that when everyone feels like they're an essential part of that mission, they are going to work more passionately towards the common goal that each person has. And this whole idea that, for instance, that we have to pay people slave wages to make the most money, like, I think that's complete bullshit, dude. I think that when you pay people an amount that they feel proud to make, that they feel excited to make, they are going to want to show up for you 100 times over because you've shown up for them. As within, so without, right? The people, and again, like, will you find maybe some people that don't end up working out, whatever? Yeah, sure. But are you going to allow that to dim your light and think that humanity is anything else than awesome? Yeah, sure, there's a bad apple out there here and there, or, bad would still imply duality, but a version of yourself that maybe you haven't accepted yet, or maybe isn't ready to accept God or whatever it is. Yeah, you'll meet those things. But it's kind of the same idea as, like, I've been cheated on a couple times. Am I going to allow being cheated on to mean something about me? How selfish would that be? How egotistical could I be to think that someone cheated on me because it had something to do with me? They cheated on me because they had some kind of discomfort inside and they wanted to go have an experience. I'm not going to judge them for that. I may see discerning wise, you're not my flavor of ice cream. I don't choose to spend my time around you. I want to put a boundary up. But at the end of the day, like, I think about it all the time. I'm like, if I hadn't got cheated on and had my heart broken, I wouldn't have found Rachel when I did. So actually, in a way, I'm so grateful to the woman that cheated on me because they got me to Rachel. And I think that if we can look at life like that and now allow it to dim our light, but actually allow the cracks to allow the light to come into our heart more, then that's where we really win. And again, simple, not easy, right? I'm not saying I've mastered this by any fucking means, but why, once again, do I run a show like this where I get to interact with amazing beings like you and get to have amazing people tuning in? Because we teach best what we most need to learn as well. These are things I get to remind myself of all the time too. We're all in this together, and not the creepy COVID way that the governors would say, all right? We really are all in this together, okay? I hate they took that statement. It's so cringy now, but it's true.
Yeah, 1,000%, bro. And it's not actually heartbreak to me. Yeah. It's mind break.
Yeah.
What story was I Yes, expectation break. What story was I attached to with this person, with this lover, right? That needed to unfold the way that my narrative shows. I've been delusional in relationship. I am here to admit it.
Yeah, it's me. I'm
And
the
I
problem.
still, hi, my name's Tyler, and I've been delusional in relationship. And first thing is delusional within myself, right? What is it that I'm attached to? And so heartache is a feeling of the heart contracting, right? And so what is the story that I'm linked to at that moment? You know, is this my singular soulmate for this entire incarnation, which is a story that I had? And thankfully, I have an incredibly beautiful daughter now because of that. We're not together romantically, but yet I am more in love with this person than ever because I finally realized that the soulmate component was completely true. It just wasn't to my narrative. It was going to cause me to go so deep on the inside to actually learn who I am, to be able to show up here today with you, Ryan, and actually be a more highly optimized individual on a daily basis. So thank you so much for bringing me onto your platform, for allowing me to syndicate your messages and share your frequencies. We are vibrating at such a great level, bro. I just love what you're cooking up, and I could feel it immediately. And this just like my aliveness, my mana bars increased by this conversation, and it's reinforced things within myself that are so clear. And you've helped me to articulate and find more of the depths of truth within that I've been afraid to discuss, that I've been afraid to put out in public. But guess what? The more transparently that I can live, the more spiritually I'm living, right? And so if I'm sticky in any areas, what I'm holding on to, that's what cancer is. Cancer is cells that don't die, they don't let go. And so they form into these hard, dense objects and they kill us. So I would like to be the opposite of that and actually proliferate. Allow energy and ease to flow with presence, passion, purpose, and play, baby.
Dude, think about it this way, right? To bring up the race car analogies again, God just dropped this one into me. If you want your race car to go really fast, you got to have weight reduction, right? You got to take out all that shit that doesn't serve you. And so that's really like the idea of what you were talking about with cancer, right? It's like when we start to think, no, we need all this stuff, right? We need all this stuff. You know, most people look at like a hoarder situation as a purely physical thing. But really, it's everything. It's not just physical, it's emotional, it's mental, it's spiritual. Because again, as within, so without. So if we need to hold on to all this stuff, or we feel like we can't let stuff go, well, then, yeah, that's going to lead to some challenges, you know, or as I like to say, opportunities in disguise, opportunities for growth in disguise. And so, dude, that was so poetically stated, man. And I really am grateful for all the kind words you shared, because that's why I do this. I do my best to be as authentic as possible, to be my silly self, and to never allow anyone to believe anything that is not really me. Like, I don't want to be the Lambo guy. I don't really care to be that unless I naturally get a Lambo and I'm like, guys, check out what I did. Like, but like at the end of the day, my ultimate expression is seeing other people and seeing the light turn on in their eyes, where they realize life is so much more magical than the stories and myths that they've inherited from other people who allowed their myths and stories to be small and their world to be small, told them it was, you know, and seeing that light turn on. You know, I just went to a music festival with a buddy of mine, and it was one of his first festivals. And, you know, it was a small fest. I was telling you about it, you know, cool time and everything. But, you know, it was just like that feeling of him being like, hey, I'm meeting some new people and we're going to play music together. And I'm like, see, like, you just had to get out of your natural environment, dude. And all of a sudden, all this new stuff's coming in. So now what you want to do is just go online and look up a bunch of events happening near your town and just scroll through and wait for a feeling. Scroll through like, ooh, that sounds interesting. And then just go there. Don't think about it. Just go. You never know why. It might be because you go there and you realize, oh, I actually didn't like that kind of event. Cool. You either win or learn, right? If you allow yourself to. So, man, it's been so amazing to have you on, dude. I can't wait to have you back on. Hopefully we get to do the next one in person too. I hope I get to be in person with you one day soon again, my brother. To everyone tuning in, I do want to say, make sure you come to High Vibe Fest next year. Tyler and I will be there. It's going to be a freaking blast. Go check it out. Equanimous makes it. I'm not affiliated with them. I'm not making any money off this. It's just a great time. But Tyler, thank you so much for coming on, man. Where can I send people to find out more about you, to connect with you, to hear more about everything you got going on, man? Because you are a wealth of wisdom and information. And I want as many of the listeners as possible to enter your world, man. Go fly around, go have fun, go benefit, and go co-create, right? Just like Tyler and I are doing. So where can I send people to find out everything about you, my man?
Thank you so much, bro. It's Tyler Drake Official everywhere. TylerDrakeOfficial.com, Instagram, YouTube. You know, we out here. We were cooking up on a daily basis. And you know what was coming through loud and clear? Hooked on a feeling.
Yes, dude.
I don't believe in.
Yes, dude. So good, bro. So fucking good, man. Oh my God, dude. I fucking love that. And dude, I have one final question I like to ask all my guests. You down?
Absolutely.
All right, dude. Let's say someone listens to this episode and they're like, man, I really want to highly optimize my life starting tomorrow. What is the one piece of advice that Tyler Drake would offer them to allow them to manifest that reality, to start highly optimizing their life tomorrow? What's the one piece of advice you would give them?
Always take the action that is the highest excitement, period. And do it with zero insistence on the outcome. Take it as far as possible with zero insistence on the outcome. That is the spiritual path. That is the way to live the most fun and vibrant and creative and inspiring and connective and co-creative and just artistic life. Our heart is our art. It is heartistic living. And so we do that by following our passion, our highest excitement on a moment to moment basis all day, every day, baby.
Architects, dude, you know? That could be a whole pun right there. You've given me like 3 good puns this time, so I had to throw it back with one, you know? That one came through as a idea.
It's all about the ideas, bro.
Dude, you guys heard it here first. Like Tyler says, go out there, be architects, all right? Allow your heart to architect the world that you want to see around you, because it really does all start and end with you. Tyler, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. We really appreciate it. Go down to the show notes. Go give Tyler a follow. Go check out what he's doing. Like I said, come to High Vibe next year. We'll be there. I'll bring probably my flowers so we can have fun with some bags. We'll have so much fun, guys. And if you haven't rated the show yet and you love the show, we'd appreciate a 5-star review. Helps us keep growing and growing the show. I know I say it every time like a broken record, but I'll be a broken record about this because it matters to me. So I love you guys. Hope you're having the best day ever wherever you are in the world. Until next time, may the source be with you. Peace.